Hi, I'm Holly Jumperson, and this is a final update on my Appetite Artist residency, Hat to the Future. So here is block one. It might look kind of boring right now as I wanted to make a classic traditional dome-shaped block, and then I'll pick apart and destroy the shape a bit later. This had previously been blocked with a super large piece of felt, and I'd cut a lot of the outer brim off. So here's me chopping up the brim into triangular shapes and long, thin, rectangular pieces. I used contact glue to bond these together to make some 3D pointy shapes. I made a load of these and then I sanded them all down to get rid of any bits of excess glue. I then pinned them on to get an idea of where I wanted them to go. Obviously, I had to try the hat on and give it a little test run. I then cracked out a fresh tin of contact glue and I used this to bond all of my shapes over and around the middle of the crown and the brim in a line. I then added an underlayer of silver spray paint to the whole of the hat. This hat is all about taking something traditional and just turning it all upside down, so I then resprayed over this with black spray paint. When this was all dry, I took my little blowtorch and I burned off any fuzzy layered bits, and then I sanded down the edges so that it had some distressed silver underlayer bits peeking through. I then used my sewing machine and added some cotton covered copper millinery wire all around the edge of the brim to kind of hold the shape together, and then I covered this with a machine sewn black trimming. I wanted exhibition visitors to be a part of the destruction and chaos of this hat, so it's been displayed with some pots of paint and some brushes, and people are invited to do with this what they like. Here is the finished piece on display in Newcastle Common, and I'm super excited to see if anyone is brave enough to let loose with the paint on it. Here's block number two. Absolutely not traditional or classic at all. Some call it a pumpkin, some call it a flower, some call it your grandma's trifle or jelly from a bowl. This one's called Nostalgia, and I'd previously dyed, blocked and shaped it. So here I am cutting up some white cotton fabric, ready to do some cyanotype printing to add to it. So I mixed the iron salt chemicals together in equal measures, and I coated both pieces of cotton fabric with it until they were completely and evenly covered throughout. It's this bright sickly green colour at the moment, but that's all going to change, don't worry. I left this overnight to completely dry in a dark storage room, and next I used some photos that I'd taken of some Spode pottery plates and I turned them into photo negatives on Photoshop. I printed these onto transparent film paper, and these are what I will use to create my prints on the fabric, and I'll show you how. Here's the now dry fabric, still green. I laid this out, I popped down my film photo negative and covered up the rest of the fabric that I didn't want to expose to light yet. With the first printing section, I popped 3 UV light sources over it and exposed the area to the light for about 6 minutes. I then moved the design over, I recovered the other parts of the fabric and repeated the process. This took a little while of repeating to fill both of the sheets of fabrics with my design, and when I was done I washed out all of the remaining cyanotype dye, which left me with my original white cotton fabric and this blue Spode pottery designs on it. The next thing I needed to do was cut a hat crown shaped hole in the middle so that I could slide it onto the hat, and then I used another form of contact glue. It was a spray version this time to bond the fabric to the brim of the hat. I cut off the excess fabric around the brim, and again, mandatory hat try on for research purposes of course. I then repeated this whole process on the underbrim, so that both the top and the bottom were covered with the design. I attached trimmings off camera, and here is the finished piece on display in Newcastle Common. Next up is block 3. This one's going to be short, as we saw most of the creation of this in the last videos during my live hat making days in Newcastle with the public. As you can see, I had lots of help creating this and adding the pyrography designs. To finish it, I did another layer of black paint on the pyrography designs, just for like a more sharper contrasted look. I then did a mixture of machine sewing and hand sewing to add trimming around the edges and inside of the hat. This one is called the Sport Swat, and it's a fedora cap hybrid, and here it is on display in Newcastle Common too. You can go and check these hats out for yourself between now and the 26th of October, any Friday or Saturday, 11 a.m till 3 p.m at Newcastle Common. Let me know what you think.